Hello everybody, welcome to Fresh Coffee Coaching, and today we've got something pretty exciting to share with you because this is the ultimate dopamine hit of the day. It's the thing that makes everything better. What is it? It's Fresh Coffee Coaching. Let's start. So what are we doing today and what I'm going to share with you? I've got something pretty special today that I'm going to be doing. So if you're a consultant or a therapist or a coach, or even if you're starting out and want to become a consultant or a therapist or a coach, and you're looking to build an online business and to get customers online, one of the things you need to be very clear about is your audience, about who you actually want to help. And when you're working on building out your business, what a lot of coaches do in the early days is they start out with saying, I'm a coach, and they create a business card. But in the old days, what we do is create a business card, you get a flyer, maybe drop some flyers into a health store, and then you would tell people, I'm a coach, if you need coaching, come to me. Without necessarily explaining to people what is the exact specific problem that you're actually trying to address. So when I look at different people I've come across over the last 20 years in the coaching business, the people who are most successful are the ones that pick a specific target area, a niche that is clearly identifiable, like for example stopping smoking or weight loss or fitness or nutrition or something like that, and they focus specifically on that area. And they tell people, I can help you with that one area, that one niche. And I think this is really important starting out. Now, the thing is, you might not know what your niche is in the beginning. When you're starting out, you might not know what your niche is because you've just got trained maybe. And you're saying, well, should I focus on, making money? Should I focus on FX trading? Should I focus on showing people how to set up a YouTube channel? Should I focus on helping people to change their lives? So what you probably find, especially in the early days, is you might have to go out and test things and taste things first of all, and find out what works for you, what you like. So you might have to be more generic in the beginning. The problem with being generic in the beginning is that people won't know what you're doing. This is a very common problem. People say, oh, I can help alleviate stress or alleviate anxiety, or I can help you change your life. And as a coach, yeah, you can do all these things, but what happens is your message becomes too diluted. So what we want to do as a coach is we want to really understand who our target audience is and how you can help that target audience with a specific problem. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you a little bit behind the scenes about my target audience and about some of the areas, some of the things that I'm doing to map out that niche. And I'm doing it for two reasons. Number one is because we have a signature program that we have, and that signature program needs a refresh. And now that I've been recording a lot of content in our home-based office in the last year, it's time to refresh some of the old content I've done. So what I'm going to do today is I'm actually going to record some of the content for our signature programs, and you get a chance to watch it for free. So normally this is part of a package that we do for our VIP clients, our mentoring clients. And as we're going through that refresh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be showing you the actual structure of that program, and I'm going to share it with you so you can basically model that and maybe create your own version of it. So let me give you a little bit of context of why this is important. When you offer your service to somebody, whether you're a consultant, an educator, trainer, teacher, coach, therapist, what you're going to do is you're going to be doing two things. You're going to be offering your services as a one-on-one coach or a group coach, but you also need to create some sort of a signature program. You need to create some sort of a vehicle, some sort of a package that describes what you do. And that package, the purpose of that package is to give people, okay, I've just got a message here, my music is too loud in the background, so I'm going to it is actually way too loud. I'm surprised you didn't see that. I'm going to bring that way down. That should be better. Magella came in there with a with a whiteboard with a message on it saying, "Hey, the music is too loud." So hopefully that's a bit better now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the signature program that we created back in 2015. Okay, we're going to show you that, and I'm going to record a new version of that today. There's been a lot of improvements and tweaks I've put into it. And of course, with the nice layout I have here with the office, that means that I can actually make it look a little bit more, raise the bar a little bit, make it look a little bit more professional as well. So that's one of the things we're going to do today. The other thing I want to do today is I want to remind you of some of the previous live streams we've done. And yes, we are going to take some segments out of that and publish them later on. But some of those other live streams, there's some really important information, some really important insights in some of those other live streams. Well, all of them, I think. And one of them that I think is really important is the last one I did, which is the evolution of social. And in the evolution of social, I talked about 3 things that we need to do as we pivot to an online business. Number 1, we need to have some sort of a polished performance, what I call a signature talk. And that signature talk is something that captures the problem and solution that you're offering to people. Because without that, people won't really know what you're offering. Okay. And we have several different signature talks based on different audiences. And one of them we're going to talk about today is the one that's really focused on high-end performance. It's about getting the edge in success, and it's called the Performance Accelerator Action Plan. So we're going to talk about that today, and I'm going to record the actual training course for it, so you get to see that as well. So having a signature program is really important. The second thing that I think is new, certainly more relevant today than ever has been before, is that just creating a signature talk doesn't mean somebody's going to buy your course. Just having a presentation or a webinar or even a course doesn't mean somebody's going to buy your course or sign up for your program. You also need to create affinity with people. And what I mean by affinity is giving people the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better, maybe ask questions, maybe interact with you. And that could be in the form of podcasts, it could be in the form of blog posts, it could be in the form of social media posts, it could be in the form of standing in front of a camera and talking to people in a live stream. Or it could be in the form of, let's say, Clubhouse, like a live interaction where you can talk about maybe your signature program and you give people a taste for it. And I think this is something that's changed. And the reason that I think this is really important today is that when you actually understand your mission, when you understand what's the change you want to create in the world, when you understand the difference you want to make in the world, and you can package that in some sort of a signature talk to give people a taste of it, right? People need to build some trust. People need to build some awareness. People need to build some sort of an understanding of how you've gotten there and what it's like to actually work with you. And this is really about building a community. It's about building a tribe, building a following, or building a presence, I think is probably a better word. And the idea of this is that while somebody might see your signature talk or might buy your book or download your ebook, it's really nice to be able to catch up with the person, be able to connect with the person and get attention and get more awareness of what they're actually doing, getting to know, like, and trust that person. And really it's about, if you think about a newsletter, the old days what you do is you sign up for a newsletter, you got an email once a week, once a fortnight, and the newsletter will give you a little bit of a taste of what's happening in that person's world, that person's business. And I don't know anybody who reads newsletters anymore, very few and far between. But what we're more likely to do nowadays is to listen into an audio podcast or watch a short 5-10 minute clip on YouTube or Facebook or social media, somewhere like that. And these become very important reminders of the signature program and also how you can help them solve a particular problem. So I think this is really important as well. And the third thing then is that it's not just about having a signature program. It's not just about having some sort of a presence online that people can connect with you, can remind about what you do, but also having a platform or a space where you can work with your clients, where you can work with your team members, when you work with your colleagues, where you can work with your partners and your business partners and your sponsors and people like that. And all of these are three different types of business functions, and all of them are really important in having an online business. And I don't know anybody who's got a successful online business that doesn't have all three. Now we can go into the details of WooCommerce or ClickFunnels and Kajabi and all the rest of it, but that's just technical. That's just technical stuff. And I think one of the challenges with getting into the technical side of things is it's very easy for you to get lost in the technical and forget about the big picture, you know? And one of the things I think has been very valuable for me this year is actually starting to diversify my team, start to grow my team, and having specific people do specific roles in our company, which makes it easier for me to actually stay on top of what's happening. I mean, for a long time, what I did is I tried to do everything myself. And I think this is one of the biggest mistakes or challenges that a lot of small business, one-man businesses have, therapists, and coaches, and trainers have, is that they tend to do everything themselves. So if they want to learn if they want to build a new website, they'll go off and do a course on how to build a website, and they'll go build a website. If they want to create a course, they'll go off and watch a video on how to create a course, and they'll create a course. And the problem with that is what you're doing is you're spreading yourself thinner and thinner all the time. And the more you spread yourself, the thinner you spread yourself, the more you'll find that you actually don't have a lot of time left to do the things you really want to do. And I think this is true for most small businesses, because most small businesses, you have to do everything yourself. Now, I talked about the Prosperity Prism many times before, and we'll mention it again today. On the Prosperity Prism, I talk about that when you start a business, like a coaching business or a self-run business, you really have to start as a pragmatist in the beginning. So the pragmatist being the person who has to cut their cloth to measure. You need to be very careful with money, and you need to try to do everything yourself. And that's great for the prep, getting ready to set up a business, or if you're running a part-time business. You can't really justify spending the money in the beginning because you're just getting set up. Now, the problem with that is if you stay being a pragmatist for too long, what happens is you can literally run out of time because you're doing everything. And you have to evolve into thinking about, how do I create jobs, tasks for me to focus on and get done in the business? Okay, so you need to start moving away from just trying to save money and spend time doing stuff. You have to think about how you start to leverage your time and break things down to tasks and get very focused. So the second level in the Prosperity Prism is about understanding the role of the worker, as in you become the worker in your own company. In other words, you've got a job working for yourself. And to do that, there's two key factors that are very important. The first one is crushing hesitation, developing sense of urgency, is doing things quickly. There's a great tip for you on this, which is called the Pandora technique. And I have one up here, actually. Just grab it for a second. So it's to get a little timer. You can get these in Amazon for about £5 or £6. And when you sit down to do focused work, when you're working for yourself, treat yourself like you're your own boss. And set a timer for 50 minutes or 45 minutes or 20 minutes. I think the recommendation is 20 minutes, but I like to do it for a 55-minute block. And the timer actually ticks really loud. I don't know if you can hear it here, but it's really annoying, okay? Which is great, because if you're actually doing focused work, you shouldn't be noticing that. And if you can hear the ticking, that probably means you're not focused. You need to get back on focused work. If you can do 1 hour of focused work every day on your own business, you're going to make massive strides forward. If you can do 4 of these units, 4 1-hour segments in a day, you're more productive than most people in a normal job. So that is really about understanding how to give yourself work to do quickly. The third level then in the Prosperity Prism is about understanding the role of the manager. Now, in the role of the manager, you're actually starting to move away from just doing the work. You want to be focused on planning the work, because you need to start thinking about, where is this going? Because if you stay working in your own business and you're doing all the work and you're just trying to save money all the time, you can never grow. So to transition from being a worker to being a manager, you need to think about, how do I manage this work? And you have to wear 2 hats, right? You have to wear one hat, which is planning the work that needs to be done. And then you have to wear a different hat, which is actually doing the work. But you have to think about it differently, because if you want to make your business grow, you have to come to the next stage, which is the innovator, right? And to become an innovator, you actually need time to innovate. You need time to create. You need time to build new stuff, new things in your business, new lines of business, new products, new ideas. And the challenge with that is that if you're just working in the business the whole time and you're not planning the work, you become a busy fool. And you're just doing the same thing over and over again, and you just never have any time, and it's stressful. And the challenge for you here is actually having time to mark out what you want to plan, and to mark out when you want to do the work. So your priority has to be about managing your own work so that you can actually give this work to somebody else later on. One of my core philosophies, and I've talked about this before, is that you should eventually what you should do is you should outsource everything but your core competencies. So if your core competency is coaching and working one-on-one with people, you should try to outsource everything that isn't that. So all you're focused on is the overview of the business and making progress by saying, what's my strategy? What's my 10-year plan? How am I working on that plan? But most people don't do that. They get caught up in the day-to-day running the business, and they're working in the business, not working on the business. So being able to differentiate the worker role and the manager role is really important. Once you get that right, and you can manage your own work and do the work, then you actually enter the realm of being a real innovator. What people would call an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is unique in one way. An entrepreneur is able to successfully plan the work they need to do and do the work, right? That's an entrepreneur. But to become an innovator, you actually need to be able to plan and do the work, but you need to start then getting other people to do the work. You need to start growing your team. You need to bring other people in to take over those tasks that you don't want to do, you're not good at, and it's not cost effective to do. And when you do that, you really become an innovator. And the innovator is really about bringing the creative side of your business to the forefront. And when you do that, when you get that right, what happens is you get your freedom back, right? And there's two big challenges about becoming the innovator, about building your team, about actually expanding your business. The first one is a lot of people have a fear of letting go of control. They'll say, people can't, I can't do this because if I give it to somebody else to do, they'll muck it up, right? They'll make a mistake. So I have to make sure that I know how to do it first. So what happens is you end up becoming the expert before you can outsource it. But that's not good use of your time, because there are already people out there that are better than you at this, or can do it faster. So it makes more sense to let go of control and let them help you get there quicker, right? So what can happen is if you've got fear of mistakes happening, you become a micromanager. You're micromanaging every step along the way. The other side of it is not wanting to let go of responsibility. And if you don't want to let go of responsibility, what happens is you can get caught in the detail of every single step of what you're doing, and that ends up also creating problems around micromanagement. So a lot of the focus on being an innovator is about being able to plan the work, strategize the work, but then actually getting other people to do the work. Certainly the work that's the lower skilled work that doesn't involve you, that doesn't require you to do it. So obviously, in my case, I'm a trainer and a coach, so I would be doing the training, I would be doing the coaching. But there's a lot of other things that I do as well that I'm now starting to outsource to other people. A lot of the social stuff, a lot of the editing stuff, a lot of the technology stuff, a lot of the planning, operations, finance, all that sort of stuff. I'm now giving that to other people to do. I'm relinquishing control, I guess, so they can focus on the things which I love doing, which is speaking, talking, teaching, and training. And that brings us to the last level, the enigma then. And the enigma really is about being able to repeat that process. It's about being able to plan the work, delegate that work, create an income stream from that work, and then being able to rinse and repeat that for somebody else. And do that again. In other words, creating different streams of revenue in your business, and each one of those streams of revenue actually gives you a revenue stream that helps you grow your business. Okay, so that's one of the things that's really important about understanding how to grow your business. But the other thing is about understanding the signature program. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put an intro in here in a moment, and I'm going to record the new version of the Performance Accelerator action plan. So it's quite a long training. We'll be slicing this up. It's probably about an hour. So if you've got an hour free right now, then join us on YouTube and you can get the full slides. If you're on Instagram, you won't actually see the slides. You'll only see the Instagram feed, this feed over here. So jump over to YouTube and you'll be able to see the full presentation. This is part of a paid program, so you're actually getting it free today. So a little bonus fee if you want to actually see some of the content that we're going to be sharing with our clients and mentoring students, mentees in the future. Okay, so let me just take the music down and let's begin. Okay, welcome everybody, and today we're going to be going through how to get the edge on success. My name is Michal Calhoun. I'm the founder of Transforming People Academy, and over the last 15 years I've worked with hundreds and thousands of people probably at this stage to help them to remove the blocks that stop them moving forward, but also to get focus, clarity and direction on what they're doing. And one of the things we've developed over the last 15 years is the Performance Accelerator Action Plan. And this action plan is for you if you really want to get the edge of success, if you want to know how to get in that top 5%, if you want to improve your performance without burnout, and this is for you. So let's begin. So before we begin, I just want to talk about what you're going to learn from this. This is basically the one plan you need to accelerate your performance without burnout. So this is one of the problems that I see, is that if you're actually really busy and you're just go all the time and you're just burning out and you're stressed and you're overloaded, you've got anxiety, then what's probably missing is a simple plan that you can follow, a 5-step or 5-part plan that allows you to really get the edge in success. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be breaking this down into several different pieces. And those pieces are really about understanding how to do things differently. Now, look, here's the thing. What I'm going to show you today is about, if you've always did what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So if you want to change what's happening in your life, if you want to change the results you get, you have to do things differently. You have to think differently, and you have to do things differently to other people. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about what would you need to do differently today to get real value from this particular presentation, from this particular hour or so. And what it comes down to is understanding 3 concepts, right? So if you want to make this the best hour of your life so far, there's 3 things you need to think about. First of all, you need to ask yourself, am I coachable? Am I willing to listen to a plan, a set of instructions, and be able to follow that plan step by step without questioning, without saying, oh, will this work for me? Just accepting this as a plan that I know works and can work for you as well if you follow through on it. And the question here it comes down to, are you coachable? Are you willing to follow the instructions that I'm going to give you today to get the results that you actually want to get? The second thing is about, are you captivated? Are you willing to put yourself in a state of learning so you're intrigued and willing to be open to what I'm going to teach you today, right? So you're always going to have people who are the doubting Thomases, but I'm going to show you stuff today that I know works. So if you're open to this working for you and stop doubting yourself and saying, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I don't have the time, maybe I don't have the money, maybe I don't have the experience. If you stop doubting yourself and be open to the possibility of this working for you, it could change your life. And the third thing I want you to do is I want you to be able to concentrate on what I'm saying. Okay, and when I say concentrate on what I'm saying, what you really need to do is you need to be able to remove distractions. You need to be able to focus on what I'm saying in a way that you can absorb it without being distracted. So what I want you to do is, if you're unless you're on your phone, turn off your mobile, shut down your email, turn off your alerts, and ideally you want to get a notepad or a pen and paper so you can take some notes. I've got some really important points here. And if you want to get the slides for this presentation, then what I can do is I'll show you how to get those at the end of this presentation. And try to get yourself into a nice quiet place where you're not going to be disturbed, because that's going to make a really big difference to being able to concentrate and focus on what I'm saying. So if we take those three things together, this could be the best hour of your life so far. And that's what we're going to be covering today in the Performance Accelerator Action Plan. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to ask you first about where are you right now? Now, when I talk about where are you right now, I'm saying where are you in terms of where you'd like to be, right? You really need, if you want to get somewhere, if you want to go somewhere in life, you really need to understand where you are right now, where you want to be. If you're in the middle of New York and you want to get down to lower Manhattan, you need to know where you are in New York first of all, and you need to know where Manhattan is. So you need a map. You need some sort of a map to get there. But if you don't know where you are right now, you're not going to be able to get there. And one of the things that's really important for understanding around this particular this journey you're on is what I call the prosperity prism. Now, I've done a video already on the prosperity prism, so I'm just going to give you a summary of it here today. You need to know, let's just get out of the way of the diagram here. You need to know, where are you on the journey? Are you a pragmatist? Are you basically trying to save money and take up all your time? Are you a worker, which means you're working in the business, but you're caught being really too busy, you don't have any time? Or are you a manager? And if you are a manager, are you managing effectively? Or are you over planning? Are you the perfectionist that never gets things done because you're planning, you're not actually doing the work? Or are you an innovator that's not necessarily following the lower levels? If you're an innovator but you're not planning, you're not doing the work, and you're not cutting your cloth to measure, then none of this will work. So what you want to do is make sure you can bring all these together. And what we're looking at here is, how do you actually become the enigma? How do you become someone who has the ability to create amazing results, to perform at your highest level, and to get the agent success? So this is really what we're talking about today, is understanding where you are on that journey. And if you're at the pragmatist level, you need to figure out how to move to the worker level. If you're the worker level, you need to figure out how to move to the manager level. Manager level, how you move to the innovator level. And if you are at the innovator level, how do you become the enigma? How do you make it all work together by bringing these different aspects? So if you want to get more on the prosperity prism, I've got a fantastic video on that you can actually watch on YouTube. So please check that out. Link will be in the description below. So what we're going to do today is we're going to be focusing on 4 different things. Okay, we're going to talk about the problem in high-end coaching, the problem with not getting high-level performance. Why is it that people don't achieve the results they want to achieve? Then we're going to talk about the solution. How can you do that? How can you actually get better results as a result of understanding some of the things I'm going to share with you today about mindset and things like that? And the next thing I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you the Performance Accelerator Action Plan, the actual plan itself that I will use if you become a client with you, or if you want to use it yourself. You're welcome to take the plan that I give you today and to run with it, so that you can actually start to look at the problems that you have, find the solutions that I'm going to share with you today, solve those problems, and execute on the results. And then at the end, I'm going to show you, we're going to have a Q&A. I'm going to show you where you can get, if you want to actually have a chat with me, or if you have questions about this presentation, what you can do to actually reach out to me and answer any questions you have. Okay. So once again, my name is Michal Calhoun. I am the founder of Transforming People Academy, which is a school of transformational coaches. So we create and we train transformational coaches that can help you to transform your life by understanding what I'm going to explain to you today. They can work with you to help remove the blocks that stop you moving forward, but also get clarity, focus, and direction on where you are, so that you are highly motivated and you can move in the direction you want to move in. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to break that down into these 4 different parts: the problem, the solution, the plan, and the Q&A. Okay, so let's begin and talk about something that most people don't want to talk about. And it's this thing that I want to talk about today is super important, because I think a lot of people in the personal development industry probably don't want me to say this. I think a lot of people will disagree with me on what I'm about to say here. And what I'm saying is controversial only if you don't take the full picture on board. And what I want to talk about today is goals. So let's talk about goals today. Let's talk about goals and the problem with goals. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have goals. What I'm saying is that most people don't know the goals they've set. Most people have set unconscious goals, and those goals are probably not what you actually think they are. Most people will have some sort of a New Year's resolution at the start of a year, And some people might have certain goals in their career or their business or in their relationships. But most goals that people have are unconscious. They've already set them at an unconscious level and they're just not aware that they have set those goals. And we're going to explain how that works. And what happens is when you set these goals unconsciously, those goals create motivation. Okay? But most goals that people set unconsciously are not good goals. They're goals of avoidance. Okay, and we're going to talk about that today. And this is one of the big problems with goals, is that when you set goals that are goals of avoidance, what happens is it creates obstacles, it creates problems that you have to solve later on. So what I want to do is I want to explain exactly how that works. So when we work together, I can save some time in showing you how to pinpoint those very things that stops you moving forwards, those blocks that stops you moving forwards. Okay. So let's talk about goals for a second. So imagine this is you. Okay. And I've just got a little, so I'm going to just come out of the presentation for a moment because there is something on my screen that I need to fix. And once I fix that, I'll be able to continue on. So a little glitch in the matrix, as you might say. Okay, so let's say this is you. So let's begin again. Okay, so let's say this is you. Okay, and you're minding your own business, and what you want to do is you want to set a goal, and you have a first step and a last step in order to achieve that goal. Okay, so the first step is the first thing you'll do to achieve your goal, and the last step is the very last thing that happens before that goal actually becomes true. Okay, and these concepts are very important, the first step and the last step. If you don't have a first step, you won't know what to do next. And if you don't have a last step, you won't have a picture of how you know you've achieved your goal. You won't have any evidence criteria for achieving your goal. Like some people say, I just want to be happy. Well, what's the last step that would need to happen before you're happy? You'd probably be smiling, feeling content, but you can do that right now because that's not a goal. Feeling happy is a state. It's a state of being, a state of existence. It's not a goal. A goal has to be something that's measurable, that you can see yourself actually achieving it. So you need a last step, but you need a first step. Your first step is the first task you need to do to move in that direction. And the last step is the last thing that you see happening. It's the evidence of the goal happening. Okay. Now, what I've done is I've created like an idea here, or a metaphor for goals, and I think of it as a portal. When you create your first step and your last step, and you write down, you plan your first step and your last step, what you're doing is you're setting up a portal called time. Okay, and that portal is kind of like a way of getting from the first step to the last step. And if you're focused on your goals, you get pulled from the first step to the last step through this portal, and this portal is called, I call it time. Okay, so I want you to consider this as a conceptual idea, that you go into the first step and then you go to the next step and the next step and the next step, and you go through time until you achieve your goal. And that goal could be in a week, it could be a month, it could be a year, it could be 10 years. Now, whatever it is, what you need to understand that as you go through life, you're going to put limitations on yourself. You're going to put constrictions that on yourself like an elastic band. And these things are the things that you say to yourself that hold you back. Okay, I like to think of them like elastic bands that are wrapped around this portal, and the impact of that is that actually they squeeze the portal down and make it harder to get from the first step to the last step. And these elastic bands are weighed down by what I call the gremlins. So these are the little gremlins here. These are the little sort of voice inside your head that's given out to you, that's saying, hey, you should do this or you should do that. And what's really important is understanding that these gremlins is your own internal dialogue. They're the programs or the patterns that you've been running your whole life. And one of them might be when you're going to set your goal, you might say, oh, I'm scared. I don't know if I can do this. So that might be one of your gremlins, right? But you could have other ones as well. You might have another gremlin that's hanging off that one, that when you feel scared, you say, what if I'm wrong? What if this is not going to work for me? What if I fail? What if it's not going to, maybe I'm making the wrong choices? So that would be an example of another gremlin. Or you might say, I'm a failure. Maybe you've done something in the past, and when you do it, you fail. So you say, what if I fail again? Now, are these true? No, they're not true. They're just experiences that have happened in the past. Just because it's happened in the past, it doesn't mean it's going to happen again. These are called generalizations. And these generalizations form beliefs in our psyche that has us not even take the opportunity to achieve the goals we want to achieve. And this is really important because these are the gremlins, are the obstacles that weigh you down. They're the things that put the constrictions on the path from your goal, from where you are to where you want to be. And it's really important that as we go through life, we start to recognize what are the limitations we put on ourselves. What are these statements we say inside our own mind that says, I'm scared, I'm wrong, I'm going to fail, it's not going to work. What are the things we say that stops us even taking that first steps and puts constrictions on this path? So the net effect is when you actually allow these constrictions to happen, when you allow these obstacles to happen, you feel resistance when you focus on your goals. You feel that kind of like, I don't know if I can do this. And you feel the opportunities shrinking because literally the opportunities are shrinking. Watch the portal. With all these gremlins weighing down and more gremlins happen, they actually constrict and restrict the easy flow path to your goal. And the more gremlins you have, the more resistance you feel. And the more resistance you feel, the more the opportunities shrink. And what happens is you get more and more stuff, more I'm wrong, more I'm scared, more I'm a failure. And what happens eventually is you actually get to a point where you have a block. Okay? And that block is a point where the path to your goal is so difficult, or there's so much resistance there, that you don't think you can do it anymore. And what you say to yourself is, oh, I'm not going to do that again. It's too hard. And you create new stuff, a new belief, a new obstacle, a new constriction that stops you moving forward. So that new stuff is the new one called, I'm not doing that again. Have you ever said that? Have you ever done something and said, I'm not doing that again? You have, haven't you? And we say that. We say things like that all the time. And you do something, it doesn't work out. And says, well, I'm not doing that again. Well, hold on a second. Is it that you're not doing that again? Or maybe you just weren't prepared. Maybe you didn't have the right resources. Maybe you didn't have the right skills to do what you want to do. Maybe you didn't have access to the right model, the right training, the right talent stack. Was there something missing that if you had that, you could do it again? But most people don't do that. What they do is they allow these restrictions to stop them moving forward. And that becomes the problem in actually achieving their goals. So what happens when they say things like that is they get a block. See the red dot there? That block effectively blocks your path to your goal. And when that happens, you go home and you close the door on your dreams. You give up on your dreams. You say, okay, this is not for me. And you hide from the world, or you stop doing what you're doing, and you take a different path. You change direction, right? Or in worst case, you just do nothing. You just totally stop and you just hide. And this is very, very common for most people. A lot of people are actually in this place at the moment because of what's happening in the world. It's like there's a lot of uncertainty, and things that were working stopped working, and then they say, oh my God, what am I going to do now? And they just want to hide from the world. And that's fine. But what I need you to understand is that hiding from the world doesn't solve the problems, because when you actually close the door on your dreams, all your gremlins go to sleep, but they don't go away. This is the point I want you to understand, is that you have stuff, which are these patterns in your psyche, the patterns in your thinking. And just because you stop moving towards your goal, it does not mean that those gremlins go away. Those gremlins are still there. They go to sleep. They're still there, but they're asleep. Okay? Now, the block is still there, but you don't notice it anymore. Why? Because you're not moving forward. You're not moving in the direction of the... you're not moving in the direction... Oops. Let me just very briefly turn off Instagram. So you're not moving forward anymore. So you go home and you close the door on your dreams, and your gremlins go to sleep. So if you're not moving forwards, the block is still there, the gremlins are still there, but you just do not wear them anymore because you're not doing anything. So remember, your goal is still there. It's out of reach, but it's still there. The block is still there. The gremlins are still there, but you're not aware of them. But now you're back in your comfort zone. Now, this is an important phrase. I want you to remember this phrase, your comfort zone, because your comfort zone is something that we need to look at later on. And the world seems peaceful again until you actually set a new goal. So what happens when you set a new goal? Maybe you set an even bigger goal this time, right? And it's even more exciting, more motivating for you. But remember, the obstacles are already there from the last time, right? So, and when you start this new goal, same thing happens. You've got a first step and a last step. You've got a path to go there, but all the gremlins are still there. They just haven't woken up yet. You can't see the obstacles. So this even bigger goal, what happens is as soon as you focus on this goal, all the old stuff gets activated, right? So all the I'm wrong, I'm scared, I'm a failure, and you get sad again, and it's like, oh my God, why is this so hard? And you say things like that. It says, I can't do this again. So what happens is, the bigger the goal is, the more stuff you'll have. And the solution isn't finding smaller goals. The solution is actually understanding these gremlins, right? Now, here's the thing. Those gremlins are there all the time. And those gremlins are stuff we take on board because of the experiences of life, right? But there's two approaches to those gremlins. There's the wrong approach to dealing with those gremlins, and there's the right approach for dealing with those gremlins. So I'm going to show you how most people deal with these gremlins, first of all, which is the wrong approach, which is the problem with goals. And then I'm going to show you the right approach afterwards, okay? So let's talk about the wrong approach first of all. So how does anybody achieve really big goals? Now, this is how most people achieve really big goals. What they do is they use lots of motivation. So just move out of the way here. So they use motivation. They get highly motivated and get really pumped up in order for them to go out there and just bang down the door of these goals and achieve their dreams, okay? And that's fine, but remember that motivation requires energy. So the more motivated you are, the more energy you have. So it's almost like the energy is like these balloons that lift you up. So if you imagine these are balloons of motivation, they're pumped up with like a helium gas, a light gas. It lifts you up so you feel more motivated. You feel that you have the energy to do what you want to do. And so what happens is if you have these obstacles, you've got all this stuff that's activated, we can use motivation to overcome our obstacles. So here's our obstacle here, and we've got all these obstacles. We've got all these gremlins there. And what we can do is the gremlins create constrictions, and the more obstacles we bump into, the more motivation we need. So we can use motivation for overcoming these obstacles. And this is the metaphor I have. It's almost like we've got these little balloons of motivation that helps to keep the path open to go from where you are to where you want to be. So you've got one here. You've got another motivation here. You've got more motivation here. So all of these balloons act like ways of keeping the path open to achieving your goals, okay? And we can build motivation in many different ways. A lot of people will build motivation by working out. They go to the gym and they just do the hard grind. A lot of people will just grin and bear it. They use focus and grit. That's the hard way of doing it. Do you ever hear people talking about hustle? Hustle is basically using motivation to push over the obstacles. That's hard work. Some people that go to motivational events, that I go to like at a breakthrough event or a Tony Robbins event or something where they get all pumped up and all excited. And the problem with all these sort of events is that it takes energy to keep the motivation inflated. This is the problem. Think about it. Have you ever gone to a performance or a show or a football match or to a motivational event and you felt fantastic? And you're all like pumped up and ready to take on the world, and your gremlins don't seem to bother you because the energy you have is more powerful than the motivation. But then what happens after about 3 weeks? Sometimes it's 3 days, sometimes it's 3 hours. For a lot of people, it's about 3 weeks. Sometimes it could be 3 months. But what happens is the air starts to leak from the motivation. The balloons shrink down. It's a little bit like the McDonald's balloon you get for a Happy Meal, and you put it in your front sitting room, and after 3 weeks, it's gone. Just shrinks down into a flat balloon. So that happens to your motivation as well. Motivation wanes, it leaks, and we lose motivation. Then what happens? The gremlins are stronger than the amount of motivation you have, and you give up, and you just feel upset, and you give up on your dreams. So we come back to square one again, and you get that block because the motivation's gone. You get a block, and then you turn around, and you go back, and you hide from the world again. So that's how most people try to achieve big goals. And when you ask them about it, if you ask them, you'd say, how did you become more successful? They'd say, I worked bloody hard. You don't know what I went through to achieve my goals. And I think that's the wrong approach. I think that if there was an easier way, wouldn't you want to take the easier way? And there is an easier way. There is a solution to it. The solution to that is actually thinking differently. So something Albert Einstein said. A problem cannot be solved of the same level of thinking that created it. So if you've got a problem that you can't solve, you have to think differently about the problem, right? And this applies to all problems. You cannot solve the problem at the same level of thinking that created the problem. In other words, where you are when you created the problem, you have to evolve from that thinking to solve the problem that was created at that level. In other words, this is where the idea of out-of-box thinking comes from. You have to step out of the box to see things from a different perspective in order to say, how do you solve this problem? So let's see how we can do this with problems. So I want you to think about this cloud as being a problem. So this is a problem. Okay, but rather than thinking that you have a problem, I want you to start thinking about you actually being in a problem. Okay, you don't have problems, you're actually in problems. So what's happening is this is you and you're inside the problem, and the problem has a problem boundary. And what you're doing is you're actually bouncing your head off the wall trying to solve the problem. Have you ever heard people say that? I'm literally banging my head off this wall trying to solve this problem. And that's exactly what happens when people are in a problem. So what you want to do is instead of thinking about having problems, start to realize that you're actually in a problem. And if you can just somehow get out of that problem, the problem will actually disappear. Now think about it. Think of most problems that you have in life, right? Most problems you have in life, you don't solve them. What happens is most problems actually become irrelevant. Something else becomes more important. Think about the problems you had in school and you wish this would happen. Did you solve those problems? Probably not. But what happened is you left school and you went to college, you got a job. Think of the problems you had in your first job. You know, maybe the problem was that nobody listened to you, or you didn't have a nice job, or something was challenging for you, you didn't get paid enough money. Did you solve that problem? No, you probably didn't solve it. What happened is something else become more important and you focus on that instead. So a lot of the problems we have aren't real problems. Some of them are, but most problems are not real problems. They're problems in perspective. They're problems with how we see the world, not the actual world itself. We're going to talk about this when we talk about the solution. So what we need to do for these sort of problems, for problems that are not real problems, what we need to do is we need to get perspective. So what we need to do is we need to figure out how we can push against the boundary of the problem and prove the problem isn't real. And this is what a coach does. This is what a transformational coach does. This is why I think everybody should have a coach or a mentor and an advisor. Somebody who helps you to see the wood for the trees. If you can't see the wood for the trees, they help you to see the wood for the trees. Someone who helps you to bring you outside the problem. And they'll bring you to the boundary of the problem, and they'll challenge your thinking about that problem, and they'll push through that problem a little bit. And then they'll challenge your thinking a little bit more and push through the problem a little bit more. And they challenge your thinking a little bit more and you push through the problem a little bit more. And watch what happens when you push through the boundaries of problems that are not real. The boundary dissolves, and when it dissolves, the problem disappears. But here's what's really, really important. When you solve that problem that was never a real problem in the first place, it was a problem of perspective, what happens is you grow. You expand as an individual because you've now taken on new resources. You've got new capabilities. You've actually solved a problem yourself. You've pushed through a boundary of a problem, and now the world becomes bigger. So this is the opposite of what happens with the gremlin scenario. You've actually, instead of saying, I'm not going to do that again, now you're saying, now I can do something that's even bigger. You can take on a bigger challenge. You can actually solve a bigger problem. You can actually make more progress. And that is the secret to the Performance Accelerator Action Plan. We have to think about problems differently and ask ourselves, do I have a problem or am I in a problem? And if I am in a problem, how do I actually push through the boundary of that problem, either myself if I've got the skills to do it, or going to an expert or someone like a transformational coach who can help you to push through the boundaries of that problem and solve that problem so you don't actually need that problem anymore. And that's really what we need to do. So if that's the solution, the question then is, how do we solve the problem? And that comes down to having a plan, right? I've been saying this for 15 years, and hopefully over the last 15 years, I'm getting better explaining what the problem is that if you don't have a plan, you don't know where you're going. Denzel Washington once said, dreams without goals are just dreams, and they'll always lead to disappointment. Think about that. Dreams without goals are just dreams, and dreams will always, by themselves, will always lead to disappointment. So you need to have a plan. You need to have a plan of action that maps out where you are right now, And where you are on these levels, are you pragmatist, are you worker, a manager, innovator, enigma? And where do you want to be in 18 months, 3 years, 10 years? And I've talked about this before. I talked about the leveraged legacy action plan before on presentations. That training is still available. And that training talked about how you actually focus on your mission rather than your goals. If you focus on the legacy you want to leave in your life as opposed to something you want to achieve in the next 6 months, you're always going to be more motivated, but you need a plan. So what I'm going to give you today is I'm actually going to give you the Performance Accelerator Action Plan. And the Performance Accelerator Action Plan is made up of 5 parts. So if you were to decide to work with me or one of our coaches that trained our school, you will actually get the full model here, and you'll get the tools, and you get access to the tools and techniques to work through this plan. So any good transformational coach that knows this plan will have the skills, the language skills, the questioning skills, the reframing skills, and the techniques to help you to execute on this plan, to help you to overcome these obstacles, to break through these problems, to push through the boundaries of the problems to solve this plan. So let's talk about the Performance Accelerator Action Plan and how you can use this plan starting today to get the edge in success. Okay, so there's 5 parts to it. The first part is about understanding the foundations to empowerment. Now, this isn't just unique to the Performance Accelerator. I believe every good training course, every good teaching modality always starts with the foundations, some principles that you need to follow. These are the things that I talk about when I say, are you coachable? Are you willing to follow the instructions in the beginning? So every single life-changing course will always have a set of principles that are based on successful strategies. And if you're willing to put those strategies into place, then you're more likely to get your outcome without even following the rest of it, just having good foundations to empowerment. And we're going to talk about the fundamental ones today. Those fundamental principles to empowerment. I've already talked about this before. If you've got my book, The Pillars of Transformation, you've probably already seen this. If you haven't, you can get it on Amazon. It's called The Pillars of Transformation. And I talk about the foundations to empowerment. And I go into details of the 4 core laws that you need to understand in order to get better results in your life. And then the 5th law, the secret law, that leads from these 4 laws. Okay? So you can find that on Amazon. A link will be in the description if you want to get access to that training. It's called The Pillars of Transformation. These are the foundations to empowerment. Once you have the foundations to empowerment understood and you're following the principles in the foundations to empowerment, then you've got 2 main pillars. You've got the externally viewed strengths and you've got your internal resources. So the externally viewed strengths are the things that people see about you. The things that people notice about you is how people see you in the outside world. Think about this. You've got many, many internal abilities and talents and resources available to you. But if you apply for a job, what do? You give people a CV. And in the CV, you put down your externally viewed strengths. You put down the things that people can see that you can do, right? You talk about your accolades, your achievements, your expertise, the things that you're good at that people recognize as evidence that you're good at these things. Because here's the reason this is important. A lot of people think they're good at something and they're not. If you don't believe me, watch people doing dance videos and TikToks, especially the funny ones where someone's being videotaped where they think they're actually really good at doing a dance routine and they're terrible at it. I'm terrible at dancing. My wife's a fantastic dancer. My point is that some people think they're good at things and they're not. Some people think they're good entrepreneurs and they're not. Some people think they're good coaches and they're not. Some people think they're good business people and they're not. So you need to look at what are your externally viewed strengths. What are the things that people say about you? Very simple way of getting this is to ask people. Ask people, what am I good at? What do you see me? What are my strengths as you see? And ask people that question and get feedback from the external world of how people see you. Your externally viewed strengths. We're going into that detail into that later on. You've also got your internal resources. Your internal resources are really important. We're going to talk about that as well. That's your ability. These are the abilities that you can lean on, the resources you can lean on to move forward. It could be time, it could be money, but most of it has to do with your thinking. Okay, those internal resources. Once you've got these 2 pillars lined up correctly, the externally viewed strengths and your internal resources, and you know how to utilize those, how to leverage these 2 pillars, the next part is understanding the strategy you use. This is basically understanding how you actually get from where you are to where you want to be. But that's not all you need. The last part is the most important part, which is understanding how to create focus together. Because think about it, if you're actually following a plan, the plan needs to bring you to an outcome. And your focus determines your success. So if you're not focused on actually creating that outcome, if you're distracted and do 10 things at the same time, you're not going to have the clarity, you're not going to have the direction, and you're not going to be able to achieve your outcomes. So these are the 5 main pieces: foundations, externally viewed strengths, internal resources, the strategy, and the focus. Okay, let us talk about what each of these actually are for and how you can use them. So breaking down the performance accelerator or action plan into the different chunks or pieces you need to be aware of. The first one is the foundations to empowerment. Now, I'm going to give you a reminder of this because we've spoken about this before. I want to give you a different perspective on it today. I want to talk about how you achieve your results. Now, how do you achieve your results in life? Is that you use your talent stack. You need certain skills to get certain results. Would you agree with that? I think everybody would probably agree with that. That you need certain skills. So you have certain skills to become a coach. You can coach people. You've got certain skills to dance. You can dance. You've got certain skills to present. You can present. You've got certain skills around technology. You can use technology, and that's what determines your results. But it's not your skills alone that determine your results. There's something more important that goes below the surface. What's really important is that it's not just the skills you have, but it's what you believe about yourself in using those skills. So for example, I might have amazing coaching skills, but if I didn't believe that I was a good coach, I probably wouldn't use my coaching skills. If I was a fantastic presenter, but I didn't believe I was a fantastic presenter, then I wouldn't use the skills of presenting. If I had amazing software development skills, but I didn't believe I was a good software developer, would I actually use those skills? Probably not. So it's the beliefs that actually provide energy to they're like the on-off switches to your skills. You might have the skills, but it's your belief that actually activates those skills. So it's almost like a switch that switches on those skills. So like here's one of the things that happen when people do our NLP practitioner training. When people do our NLP training, they actually start to believe that they can use the skills they already have. So they don't just get the skills from attending our training, they actually start to activate the skills they've been learning their whole life but never used. And think about that for a moment. Imagine that you've got all of these skills, all of these talents that you're keeping hidden from the world. And then as a result of doing 4 days training with us, you start to realize, oh my God, I can do this. I am good at this. I can achieve this. I can make progress. What would it mean for you if you started to actually lean on the skills and talents you already had as a result of starting to believe that something was possible? Okay, so your beliefs are literally like on-off switches on the skills you already have. But there's something else that happens as well. There's also your values. So what are your values? The values are the things that are important to you. So you tend to only do things that are important. And this becomes really important later on as we go through this session today. Your values are the things that create energy. We talked about motivation earlier on. So your values is what gives you the energy to follow through on your skills and get your results. So likewise, you might believe that you're a good presenter, you might believe you're a good coach, you might believe you're a good business person, you might have the skills, but it's not important to actually go and do it. If the priority isn't high enough, you're not going to do anything with it. So all of these impact your results. Now, if you're talking about how to get the edge in success, there's an important distinction you need to understand. And that's, you need to understand the difference between wants and needs. So when people come to me and say, I want to become excellent at something, right? What they're saying is they want to get certain results using certain skills, okay? And for most people, if you don't have the skills, what you do is you learn the skills, okay? And that's what people want. People want results. People want success. People want freedom. People want clarity. People want focus. These are all, and they want a skill. They want some sort of skill to get them there. The thing is, it's not just the skills they need. There's also needs as well as wants. And those things that they need are based on their beliefs and their values. So most training courses, what they do is they teach you skills. They teach you the things that you say you want. But just because you learn the things that you say you want, it doesn't mean you're actually going to get results. What will determine your results isn't the skills. You need the skills, but it's not the skills alone. You also need to understand what is the driving force behind getting up in the morning and doing what you want to do. And this all comes down to the idea of focus. So let's talk about focus for a second. Where is your focus? And this is the super important principle I want to talk about today. Let's say I'm in Galway. So I'm actually based in Northern Ireland now, but let's say I'm Galway. And let's say, for the purposes of this demonstration, let's say I want to get out of Galway. So let's say, just to clarify, I love Galway, by the way. I'm just using this as an exercise. But let's say I said, I don't want to be in Galway. I don't like Galway. Galway's not a nice place. I want to get away from Galway, right? Now, do I care which direction I go as long as it's away from Galway? No, I don't. As long as I'm going away from Galway, I don't care where I'm going. It's irrelevant to me, just anywhere but Galway. So do I have direction? Do I have focus? No. Now, imagine I was to say the exact same thing, but I was to put one more sentence at the end of it. See how this changes your perspective, your thinking. Imagine I said, I don't want to be in Galway, like before. I don't like Galway, like before. Galway's not a nice place, like before. I want to get away from Galway. I want to go to Belfast. And now what I do, I actually have focus. So for most people, they'll tell you what they don't want. But without actually having a direction, they'll never get to where they want. They'll just go around in circles. And this is important. And that's called motivated away from motivation. And the way it works is like this. A motivated away from activity starts like this. So imagine this is the quality of your life. This map here references the quality of your life. And the very top of this box here, you've got blue skies. Everything's amazing. Everything's wonderful. And down on the very bottom of the screen, things are just awful. So this is awful down here. This is down in the dirt. This is like just terrible. It's just you're stressed, you're anxious. Things are just not working out for you. But up here, things are awesome. Everything's great. It's like, wow, things are going really well. I'm really chilled out. Everything's great. Now, most people live their life in this middle area here. This is the gray zone I talked about. This is your comfort zone. This is where most things don't happen. Like you ask somebody, how are they? You'll say, yeah, I'm okay. I'm not bad, I'll say. Because they're living in the gray zone and there's nothing to be motivated about. There's nothing to look forward to. And most people will spend their life in there and they won't actually do anything until things become awful. So down here is where things become awful. And this is where away from motivation kicks in. At this red line here, this is where people say, oh my God, things are really bad. I have to do something. It says, no, I have to change. I can't do this anymore. I can't deal with this. I have to change. And at that point, they'll actually take action to change their life, right? But most people won't change their life, won't make a decision to change their life until things get really, really bad. And you don't have to do this. I've talked about this in previous videos. You don't have to wait till things get off to change your life, but that's how most people do. The way it works is like this. So that's awful, where motivation kicks in. But the problem with away from motivation is that it stops when things get good. It stops working. Your away from motivation activities cease to be important when life becomes good. So let's say, for example, you're talking about money in your bank account. So you're in the gray zone, things are okay, but then the money starts to go down. And it gets to the level down here at the bottom where things get really, really, really bad down here. Okay, so down here you say, oh my God, it's awful. And what do when things stop working? When you've no money and you're desperate, and you're really frustrated and you're really stressed, what do? You take action to find money, right? You get a job, or you sell some stuff you have, or you do something to bring money into your life. And funny enough, when you take action on things that are important, you tend to get results. So what happens is things turn around. And then now, when you make the decision, things usually have to get a little bit worse before they get better. So things get really awful, then you get a job, you get some money, and things start to improve. Now here's the problem. As things get better and you move through the gray zone, things start to get good, and you ask yourself, well, do I need money? Well, I've got a little bit of money, so I don't have to worry. I don't have to work as much. I don't have to stress. I don't really like this job anyways. I think I'll leave it. So what happens for most people is that because they're motivated to get money. They're motivated to not be poor. They're motivated to get away from poverty. They're motivated to get away from having nothing. They get motivated to do something. They take action. But once you actually have some money, then you actually take your foot off the pedal, and then you start losing motivation because you're doing okay now. And what happens is you get attracted back to the very thing that caused you to you come back to the same place you were before. So back here now, things are awful again. You're saying, oh man, I just hate being broke. I hate being poor. I hate having no money. And what you're doing is you're creating an image of your mind of somebody who's broke, who's poor, who's no money. And in that picture of your mind, you say, I want to get away from the situation. So you take action, and then you actually you make money. And when you have money, then that picture isn't so strong anymore because you've got money. And what happens is you create a repeating pattern in your life. You create a pattern where things are happening in a pattern every so often. And this is called away from motivation. Away from motivation works in cycles. Now, the same thing could happen for weight loss. This happens a lot for people who are losing weight. They're looking after the weight, everything's fine. They're in the gray zone, not great, but they're doing okay. And then what happens is they step on the weighing scales one day and they go, oh my God, I've just hit the magic number. And they say, my God, this is terrible. I need to take action. So you diet, you exercise, you do all the things you need to do. And what happens is because you're taking action, you start to get results. But what are you getting results? You're getting results because you want to get away from that image of yourself looking fat or looking big or looking the way you don't like. Okay? So you take action to get away from that picture. But the more action you take, the better you feel. And after a while, that picture in your mind starts to fade away. It's not as powerful for you. So you kind of start to ignore it. And you say, well, maybe I can have a little treat today. Maybe I'll just have just a bag of chips, or I'll have a bar of chocolate, or I'll have just an extra biscuit with my cup of tea. And you come off that routine, that strict routine you've been following in weight loss, and instead what you're doing is you fall back into the old pattern. Next thing you've put on the weight again. This is called yo-yo diet. When people put on weight, they lose weight. They put on weight, they lose weight. And the reason they're doing that is because they're motivated to get away from what they don't like. They're trying to get motivated. They're motivated to get away from what they don't like. So once they start feeling good, all the motivation disappears. The same thing with money. If somebody's motivated to get away from being broke, once they actually start to make a bit of money, they lose motivation. So in order to change that perspective, you have to have something towards you're motivated for. Now, if you were to sit down with a transformational coach and work out what your way froms are, and instead install motivated towards activities, your world looks very different. So what happens is you do a breakthrough, and what happens is you get consistent and constant motivation towards what you want. You don't get this yo-yo pattern anymore. You get a more persistent and constant motivation towards what you want. Because what we do is we take away the gremlins, we remove those obstacles, so you're not actually thinking about the things that you don't want, about not being overweight, or not being broke, or not being a failure, or not being wrong, or not being all these things. We get rid of those. We literally remove these obstacles, these gremlins, from your thinking. Now, most people don't experience life this way. Most people have a combination of both away from motivation and towards motivation. So at this point in time, if you find yourself difficult to get motivated, what you need to start with is setting a map, or setting a goal for something that motivates you towards an outcome that's positive for you. You probably still will have these motivational aspects that are things that you don't want, but you need to also focus on what you do want. Now, as you improve, if you want to get the edge on success, you need to eliminate these away from activities. You need to eliminate these away from obstacles so that nearly all of your focus is focused towards what you want and not what you don't want. And this is what Breakthrough Mastery is about. This is what our Breakthrough Mastery program is about. It's about teaching people how to actually identify these away from motivated activities, and then to work with a client to remove those away from motivated activities, so all of their focus in that area, that context, that area of their life is all motivated towards what they want. Okay? Most coaches don't teach this. They don't have the skills to teach this because it takes a particular set of language skills, of questioning skills, of awareness skills, of rapport skills, and of reframing skills. And all of these skills are skills that we teach on our NLP practitioner certification training. If you are interested, you can find out more about that. I will put a link in the description below for that as well. So what happens is that we want to understand the difference between both away from and towards patterns. So how do you recognize away from patterns in your life? How do you recognize away from patterns in your life? To ask yourself this question, to what degree are you experiencing a pattern in your life around the very things you're trying to avoid? If you're trying to avoid a certain situation, if you're trying to avoid a certain circumstances, a certain outcomes in your life, but it keeps happening, that is a very, very good clue of what your away from activities are. That's away from motivation. And if you were to remove the obstacles that causes this away from motivation, then it wouldn't happen anymore. You'd be motivated towards what you want instead, and you wouldn't have this pattern repeating in your life. Okay? One of my students said to me when I talked about this, I just had a realization. And I said, what was the realization? He said to me, I just realized I've been going from relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship, and every single relationship I kept finding myself in the same scenario with each relationship. I realized that maybe the problem in the relationship wasn't the person I was with. Maybe the problem was how I was seeing the relationship. So they had a massive epiphany about it. Says, hold on a second. The same pattern keeps coming up. Am I trying to avoid something in the relationship? And there was. And he had a massive, without actually doing any coaching, he had a massive epiphany about relationships. So look at where you're creating patterns in your life, or where you're experiencing patterns around the very things you're trying to avoid. Okay, and these are great tips for understanding what you need to change to remove those obstacles. Okay, so this comes down to this is one of the major things to understand the foundations to empowerment. Now, the next thing we want to talk about is we want to talk about your internal resources. Okay, now your internal resources are on the right hand side of that diagram, and what I want you to think about is that the resources you have are very much based on your mindset, about how you see the world. And I'm going to give you an exquisite model now on how to think differently about mindset. What I want you to think about is this. If you want to grow a business, if you want to grow a coaching business, a therapy business, or even a small business to a bit bigger business, and you want to have success in that business, you want to have financial success, you want to feel successful, you want to have more confidence, whatever you're doing, you have to think about what is your thinking around that business. And the big one about successful business is that you can't run £1 million business on 2-cent habits, or you can't run $1 million business on 2-cent habits. So if you're thinking if your mindset is not in the place it needs to be, if you're thinking as a pragmatist, but you want to create a successful business, it won't work. You have to upgrade your mindset. You have to upgrade your thinking. You have to upgrade how you see the world in order to actually be able to get the results you want in the world. Okay, the way it works is this. Now, this section here is actually from our NLP practitioner certification training, and it's called the NLP communication model. You may have seen it from other personal development people as well. There's some nuances I want to give you differently in this particular model we're going to talk about today. So what I want you to do is, this is your mind. This is your mind, okay? And when you experience life through your senses. So what are your senses? You've got the visual sense, your sight, you can see things. You've got your auditory sense, what you can hear. You've got your sense of touch, which is what you can feel, or how you feel inside. That's also your kinesthetic sense. You've also got smells and tastes. And then you think about what you experience from these senses. So for the purpose of this, we'll talk about the visual sense. But we're talking about everything. You can see something like a house. So you see a house, you could maybe hear the door closing of the house. You might smell bacon cooking or popcorn or something like that. But all this comes in through your senses, and this gives you information. That information passes in through your nervous system, your neurology. Neurology is the end of neurolinguistic programming, neurology. And in your neurology, what happens is that information gets filtered. And it gets filtered in order for you to be able to process that information and get some insights from that information to focus on what's important. Remember this. The information that passes in through your nervous system is filtered so you can focus on what's important. But you need to work on what's important. If you don't actively work on what's important, then other people will influence you and other people will tell you what's important, and you may actually have the wrong things in those filters. So those filters filter down this information so you can pay attention to what's going on. And what you do is you create an internal representation of that house, of that external experience. Now notice the picture here is a little bit jaggedy. That's because it's not a full resolution. We don't pay attention to all of the what's happening. We only pay attention to certain things. You might have noticed this if you ever see somebody, if you ever get a new car, a new phone, or a new outfit, is that once you get that new car, new phone, new outfit, you start to see the same phone everywhere. You start to see the same car everywhere. This is based on the ability to focus on what's important to you. So when you get a car and you've got a, let's say, a red car, then in your mind's eye, your mind says, oh, red cars are important because that's my car. And then you start to spot cars everywhere else. So you only notice the things that are important to you. So you don't get the full facts. The full facts are presented to you, but you're being filtered down to get this low resolution picture of what's happening. Now, as a result of that, that picture inside your mind is how you see the world. The picture inside your mind is how you see the world. Have you ever seen people who have their glass is always half empty, or other people the glass is always half full? That's because of their filters determine how they see the world. And those filters then cause us to feel a certain emotion. How you see the world determines your emotional state, how you feel. If you see things that make you feel happy, you feel happy. If you see things that make you feel sad, you feel sad. And how you feel determines your physiology, your body language. You see someone sad, they look sad, their shoulders are dropped down, their head is dropped down. Somebody is actually happy, they're more upbeat and they speak faster and they feel more energetic. Someone's enlightened, they've got like a great sense of exuberance about them. So the state that you're in determines your physiology, how your body behaves, how you breathe, how you hold yourself. And it also determines your action, the action that you take, what you actually do, your motivation. And it's your motivation that creates the results. So if you're looking for better results in your life, you need to understand two things here. You need to understand the filters that influence how you see the world, and you need to understand your state that affects your physiology and the actions that you take. So if you just focus on those two areas, if you learn about those filters, and these filters is what we teach in our NLP practitioner certification training. We teach people the 9 main filters that impact your internal representations. They impact how you see the world. So your filters determine how you see the world. How you see the world determines your state, your emotional state. Your state determines both your physiology and your actions determine your results. So let's just summarize that. This is important. Your filters determine how you see the world. Okay? So you can change your filters. A lot of people think you can't change your filters. You can, because part of your filters are your memories. Part of your filters are your beliefs. Part of your filters are your values, the things that motivate you. And there's 5 or 6 other categories as well. There's many different ways that are content-free filters as well that affect how you see the world regardless of what's happening in the world. Some people, they love change. Some people hate change. Some people only speak in very abstract language. Other people only speak in detail to get down to the specifics. So how you see the world is determined by your filters. And then your filters, how you see the world, your filters determine how you see the world. Then how you see the world, then this is how you see the world inside your head. How you see the world determines your state. If you see the world as being of having lots of opportunities and positivity, you will feel good for that. If you see the world as being catastrophic and terrible, you will see the world and you'll feel a certain way because of that. Your state then determines your physiology and your actions. Your state determines your physiology, which is how you're holding yourself, and also the actions that you take. And finally, the actions that you take determine your results. So if you want to get the edge on success, you need to remember that how you see the world is impacted by your filters, and your state determines your physiology and actions. So those 2 areas are the areas that you most will work on if you're working with a coach like myself or any of our students. It's the filters that you work on, but also your state. So if you can get in a good state, you can do good things. If you're in the right state, you can get the right results. If you're in the wrong state, you get the wrong results. So once you understand how to change your filters and work with your filters and how to change your state, you can start to get much, much better results. So that all comes down to what we call the internal resources. So there's more in that area, but that's all I'm going to cover today. There's a lot more you learn about on our training courses if you want to learn more about internal resources. Okay, let's go to the next part. So what we're talking about next is the externally viewed strengths. So this is how people see you. This is your CV to the world. This is your expertise. And this really comes back down to one thing, which is your talent stack. And your talent stack are things that you can easily change by learning skills. I want you to remember this. Your talent stack are the talents you can learn that you might find easy or hard. So some people have got a natural set of talents, but they still have to learn the skills to make those talents create results. And the thing I want you to remember is this. You can have anything you want as long as you pay attention. So if you pay attention to how people do things, if you learn how to do things, you pay attention to how to do things, you can have anything you want. You can have anything you want as long as you pay attention. But here's the thing. If you don't pay attention, you pay with pain and suffering. If you don't pay attention, you pay with pain and suffering, because what happens is you're focused all over the place. And what happens is you don't get to raise the bar on your talent stack. You don't get to improve your talent stack, which means your skills don't get better. So if you're jumping between 10 different things the whole time, you're not focused on improving your talent stack. And if you don't improve your talent stack, people won't see you as being an expert in any one area. And if they don't see you as an expert, then your externally viewed strengths won't mean anything. And this is what expertise comes down to. Expertise is about paying attention to the talents that you have and improving those skills over time. And it does take time. This is why I find it really funny when somebody comes out of school and actually thinks they're an expert, right? And they might be very good at something, but unless they've actually got years of experience doing something, they're probably not going to be an expert. Expertise comes down to your talent stack. It's not just about being able to do something. It's being able to do it consistently and raising the bar every time you do it. If you were to improve 1% every single day on a single task, 1% every day compounded, you would be 37 times better by the end of the year. Think about that for a moment. Imagine you're always trying to improve what you're doing by 1% every single day. Every year, you'd be 37 times better than you were the previous year. So think about that. 37 over 10 years, that'd be 37 to the power of 10. You'd be thousands of times better than you were 10 years earlier. But it doesn't come from just doing a little bit and expecting quick results. Results come from practicing what you know and getting evidence from the outside world, getting feedback from the outside world of what you're good at. And sometimes you might be doing something you think you're good at and you're not. And this is why it's really important to have a mirror or somebody who can actually be an external check for you, an external reference for you to help you stay on track. So you actually get the feedback you need to know you're getting the results you want. This is why a CV is important in business. Your CV tells people what your talent stack is. It tells you what you're good at and what proof that you have from that. Remember that society pays you based on what you've done already in your life. Society doesn't pay you for what you're going to do in the future. Society rewards you for what you've already achieved, right? And that's called your expertise. That's your talent stack, okay? Now, what it comes down to is really understanding where you want to be on this curve. So just move out of the way again. So this is a bell curve, and this is a normal distribution. They use this for correcting exams in schools. What you'll find in some schools is that depending on the standard in the school, they need to actually grade the students according to the standard for the whole school. So you'll have some people who will get a very low mark, some people get an average mark, some will get a high mark, some people get a really, really, really great mark. But what they do is every year they calibrate the school to shift that bell curve up and down so it's always the same. You get the same distribution of people in each category. And where most people fit in is in here in the middle. This is called being average. Now, being average is actually normal for most people. But I want you to think differently about your talent stack, because if you were to improve 1% every day for a year, you should be focused up here at excellence, because there's nothing stopping you becoming excellent at what you do if you already understand the skills you need to practice and get better and better and better and better. Okay, but most people will settle in the gray zone. Most people settle the comfort zone. They'll say, I'm good enough. Why do they say I'm good enough? Because it's driven by away from motivation. They're motivated to get away from something they don't want. So I'm good enough, I don't have to worry about it anymore. But when you start to change your thinking to focus on how to become the best you can be in your field, it changes your motivation. It changes your beliefs about yourself, and it changes the results that you get. So this is what we talk about when we talk about how to focus your externally reviewed strengths. You need to start aiming for excellence and getting the edge on success rather than settling for average, settling in the gray zone. Okay, so there's your externally viewed strengths. So we're getting through this. We've got number 1 done, foundation to empowerment. Number 2 done, internal resources. Number 3 done, externally viewed strengths. The next one, number 4, is the big one. It's the strategy. What is the strategy in the performance accelerator action plan to help you get the results that you really need to get the edge on success? And it comes down to 4 different pieces. So what is the strategy section of the performance accelerator? So let's look at it here. You pull back the label on a strategy, and what you get is 4 components. You got the map, the action, the team, the resources. Now, I'm not going to have time to go through all of these today, but if you actually want to work with me or one of our students, what we can do is we can have a conversation and help you to discover and learn more about these 4 areas: the map, the action, the team, and the resources. So let's just talk about some of these areas now, and how you can actually get some takeaways from these so they're valuable for you today, even if you don't actually talk to us straight away today. The first one we're going to talk about is the map. So this is a really important slide. You need to understand this slide, this one slide, in order to understand why things might not be working out in your life. If you're experiencing stress in your life, if you're experiencing anxiety in your life, if you're experiencing frustration in your life, this is probably why. It's because the map is wrong. So this might be your reality. This is how you see the world, okay? The reality is how you see the world. And I've put the same picture, the picture inside the person's mind. This is how they see the world. However, if this is how you'd like things to be, your values, you're going to experience stress. Let me just break this down for a second. When you look out into your world, how do things look? They look a certain way, and that's the reality for how you see it today. Now, you can change your reality. You can alter your reality by getting a coach, by getting a mentor, getting a business advisor, helping somebody to move forwards. But if in your mind's eye, how you'd like things to be are very different to how they are, that's going to create a cognitive dissonance. It's going to create a stress point, because how things are is very different to your reality. And that tension, that difference is going to cause stress in your life. And this comes down to one concept. It's called expectations. One of the things I talk a lot to people about when I'm coaching people is about, listen, do you have expectations or do you have gratitude? Now, a lot of people have expectations because they want things to be a certain way. My question is, do you have gratitude for how things already are? Because if you can actually appreciate what you already have, then you can start making steps towards how you can improve things. But if you've got values of wanting things to be very different than they are, and it's too high a bar, you will feel constant stress all the time. And I'm going to show you a little technique for dealing with this later on. I'm going to show you a technique for breaking down the stress so things aren't as stressful, that you're still motivated, but you're not stressed. So getting the map right on where you are and where you want to be is important. If it's too airy-fairy, if it's too future-faced, if it's not concrete enough, it doesn't have a clear path to get there, you will feel stress and then you'll give up on your dreams. You'll go back to square one again. So you need to set out your goals, your motivation, your leverage legacy plan in such a way as you can actually continue to make progress every single day. Okay? So what I want you to remember is this. So that's the map. The second part is the team. So what I want you to remember about team is that most coaches, consultants, and trainers tend to be one-person teams. And the thing is, if you look at all the successful coaches, consultants, trainers, educators, and coaches, therapists, anybody in this category, whether you're a coach, a consultant, a therapist, an educator, if you look to people in your field that are successful, you'll always find one trait. People who are consistently successful are not doing it alone. They have a team around them. So when I look around at the people that I look up to who are further ahead in the journey than I'm at, all of these people have built a team. They've got someone to look after their day-to-day operations. They've got someone to look after their finances. They've got someone to look after their social media. They've got someone to look after their bookings, their sales teams. They've built a team. Now, you might not be able to build a team straight away, but I would encourage anybody who wants to grow and get the edge of success to start moving away from these lower level tasks that I talked about earlier on. You cannot grow in a business if you're a pragmatist. You cannot grow in business if you're a worker. If you're a worker in your own business, basically what you have is a job, and probably a job that doesn't pay very well, right? So the two lowest levels on the prosperity prism, the pragmatist and the worker, will cause you to go around in circles and not make progress. And the only way to make progress is to expand your team and get rid of the tasks that you can't or are not good at doing. This is important. And for a lot of people to say, well, look, Michal, I can't afford a PA. I can't afford to do my finance. I can't afford to get somebody else to do my finance. I can't afford to get someone else to do social media. And that's because it's challenging. Building a team is actually really hard. There's a formula for it. There's a formula for everything. There's a certain things you need to get right in building a team. And one of the things you need to get right is understanding what is your thinking. What is your biggest fears about growing your team? What's your biggest problems about growing your team? How do you see? What is your perspective? How do you see the world about growing your team? Because at the end of the day, no matter who you are, if you're working one-on-one with people, you're always going to run out of time. If you're working one-on-one with people, you're always going to run out of time because there's an upper limit how much people can pay you to work with you. And the only way to get your time back is to leverage your time by using technology and systems and processes and workflows to be able to get more done in less time. Since I actually took on my PA and since I've got a small team of people, all freelance part-time people to help me with my business, things are moving so much faster. I'm getting there so much more quicker than I could have done before because I'm not trying to do everything myself. I think it's the biggest mistake I've made over the last 10 years is trying to do, because I've got a very broad talent stack, I think it's been too easy for me to just take on board everything and do everything myself. And I think if I was to give you one piece of advice is learn to outsource what you can do quicker so you can get there faster. It just takes you too long to get there. So this is really important. So build a team and make sure that you've got a good team around you. Remember that if you don't have a good team around you, you'll end up micromanaging people. If you have a good team around you, then you can actually let go of responsibilities and they can run with certain principles and roles and agendas without actually having to come back to you and ask questions every single time. Okay. So the other thing about a team is about understanding the bigger picture. It's about understanding the arc of actually taking action. And this is actually comes from storytelling. It's if you actually wanted to write a novel or a fiction novel or a book, there's a particular approach called the arc circle. And this is the arc circle here. And whether you're writing a story or writing the story of your life, the same thing applies. And what it comes down to is this, that you want to start by creating a journey, a menu for what you're doing in your life. You want to start out with a starter. What's the first step you're going to start out with? What's something that's exciting that you could do next? What's the very next thing you could do this day, this week, this hour that would be exciting for you? Let's say this week. What's one thing you do this week that would get you closer to your big goal? Okay. And once you know what that is, then you need to state that's the starter for the meal. Then you want to look at what's the dessert. What would be the last thing, the cherry on top that you could do at the end of this goal? Maybe it's 18 months time, maybe it's 3 years time. What would be the dessert? What would be the icing on the cake that if you got there, that would be fantastic as well. So now you've got two amazing morsels. You've got something to get you started, the starter, and you've got the dessert to look forward to at the end. And then what you want to do is you want to find a milestone somewhere about, maybe about halfway, maybe about a third of the way through, which is what I call a tasty content. Okay? So tasty content is basically something that it's a big goal for you to achieve. That you achieve that, it would feel fantastic. It would feel really, really great. And then what you want to do is you want to fill in the gaps with other tasty bubbles, little ideas and achievements and goals you can look forward to as you go on this journey. And if you can do it this way, what happens is you will always stay motivated. You've got something that gets you started, That's the next thing you're going to work on. You've got the end goal, which is the dessert. You've got like a big milestone, which is somewhere about 1/3 or to halfway through. And then you've got multiple smaller goals on that journey to achieving the big goal. So we talk about this in the leverage legacy plan, where you actually want to create a mission for your life. You want to leave a legacy behind. And how you do that is you want to make sure that the dessert, the thing you leave behind, the last thing that you have, is something that really motivates you. And then pick these milestones in between that's easy for you to focus on so you can move forward. Okay, so that is the strategy. Now, the last part of it is the focus. So let's talk about the focus. The focus is important because even if you've got all the rest of the pieces I talked about, without focus, you don't know where you're going. Because remember, where your attention goes, your energy flows. And if your focus is all over the place and you're spinning all these different plates like this guy here, you're not going to be able to have the energy to keep all the plates spinning. So it's really important to understand how focus works. The way I like to think about it is this. Imagine you had a 20-watt omnidirectional oven bulb. So if you look in your oven, you've probably got a dim little 20-watt bulb in there. And it's not very bright. A lot of these salt lamps nowadays have got the same thing, and it's a very low wattage 20-watt bulb. Okay, and it's not a very, very bright light. But and that's because the light is going out in all directions at the same time. So it's like scattered in every single direction. It's called an omnidirection bulb. The light is going in every direction at the same time. Now, if you were to get all those bulbs, all the light from that bulb, and focus in one direction, what you get is something called a laser. Now, this is a photograph of a project that I worked on years ago. And it's a 20-watt focused laser beam. It's the same power, it's the same energy as an oven bulb, but because the light from the bulb, from the laser, is focused in one direction and all the light's traveling the same direction, the same way, you can actually create artificial stars in the atmosphere from that particular light. So oven bulb can't see very, very far. 20-watt focused laser, you can actually see 15 kilometers up in the sky. It creates a solar scintillation in the sky. It's amazing, amazing thing to see. My point is this: when you align yourself with your direction, your path, you get clarity, focus, and direction. Think about people rushing through a train station. Imagine you're in Liverpool station in London and there's 1,000 people going through the station. Everybody's going in this different direction. There's no focus there. But imagine everybody's walking, marching together in a straight line down a street. And you can hear the 1, 2, 3, 4 of the march down the street. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. What happens is all of these people are lined up together and they just have a lot more power and a lot more impact in the way they're marching. So the same thing needs to happen in your thinking, your goals, and your direction. You want to become like a laser. You want to get laser focused in your thinking. So when you focus on something, you want to get really clear on the outcome you want and make sure that you've got all the other parts to bring it together. The foundations that are right, the externally viewed strengths are being focused on, your talent stack, your internal resources, all the things you need to make sure your mindset sorted out, the strategies that you have in the center, and then you want to focus on that outcome and focus on making that happen. When you bring all that together, what you get is an incredibly focused path to getting the edge on success. So if you found this useful today, then there's going to be some questions I know you have. So when we talk about questions, what I'm doing is I'm just going to see how long we're running, for about an hour and a half now. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to take questions now. If you have questions, then I'm going to leave a link below this video or somewhere around this video, where if you want to have a conversation with me, you can jump on a call, we can have a conversation, and I can go through this plan with you. We can ask you some questions about the obstacles you have and what you need to do to take the next step forward in your business, your career, and in your life. And with that, I'll put you straight over to the Q&A section. And if you have any questions, you can ask me in the comment section below, and we'll talk to you in the next video. Bye for now, and see you in the next video. Take care, folks.